What's up, everybody? Dr. Duck Bone, world famous bariatric surgeon, author of 13 books. See my MD right there, motherfuckers. What's up? How are y'all doing? Hey, I'm going to be good tonight. I promise you. Happy Sunday night. It is Sunday, January 10th. Those things are important because shit changes a lot with coronavirus. I want to talk about testing tonight. I'm talking about testing and the different types of tests available. The PCRs, the nasals, antigens, orals, saliva, all this sort of stuff, right? And because a lot of people are really confused by that. So hashtag replay. If you're watching this on the replay, you can fast forward to about the 5-minute mark. That's usually when I'm done saying my hello. So while you're waiting, where are you watching from? Hello. Hit the share button, not your friend share, not Sunny and share, but the share button. I appreciate it. I'm going to talk about testing. Our testing strategy has been wrong this whole time. I've said that for a long time. And now I think a consequence of what we're seeing now is because we do not have enough testing. All right, we're going to test. I'm going to test myself too with one of my rapid COVID rapid tests. I have this COVID antigen test that anybody want to see me shove this Q-tip up my nose? I don't know. Let's see. Where are you guys watching from? Tamiko from San Diego. All right. I told you I was internationally famous. Janice from London's watching me. That's awesome. Phil Robles from Rodriguez from hello. Hi, Phyllis. How are you? We'll talk about that. Jan Bone. I'll give you a Q&A here after I'm done doing my talk, so hang tight for the Q&A. Rodolfo from Bakersfield. Awesome. Cheryl, Irvine, California. What's up, everybody? Where are you guys calling from? Linda Davis. So let me tell you, if you look on your weather map, it says that right now, questioning everything, good, watch it on YouTube. Malaysia, what's up? Sorry about the flight from Indonesia. That's terrible news. Terrible, terrible tragedy. Cincinnati's in the house. South Louisiana called French Settlement. Never heard of it, Rhonda. Pretty good. So, Hawaii. What's up, Francine? So, your weather app says it's snowing in Houston. I just checked outside my door because it's only snowed here in Houston twice, as I can recall. I've been down in Houston since 1991, and so it's raining. Where I'm at right now is currently raining. I'm on the west side in Bel Air. Charlene Jensen from Denmark. Cute picture watching on YouTube. Brisbane. I know it's Brisbane. I've been there. It's awesome. Beautiful. I went to the Gold Coast right there, right outside of there. What's up, Connecticut? Snowing in College Station. Texas A&M grad. Hold on. Just for you, baby. Oh, shit. Never mind. I was going to show you my Texas A&M med school diploma, Sally, but it's too heavy. Tulsa, Oklahoma, you're a hot mess. Be careful. Cyprus, snowy Austin, North England. What's up, Yasmin? Awesome, awesome. We'll do Q&A at the end. All right. Las Vegas, Nevada. Is it snowing there? Laguna Beach. Is it snowing there? I highly doubt it. Hit the share button for me. We got about 1.5 more minutes, and then we will get going. Jesus, freak. Even with all my cussing, you still love me? That's awesome. All right. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Here we go. W. Wright's watching from London. Welcome on in. Lisa Kamak sent her some rapid tests the other day. Did you get your rapid test yet? New Brunswick, Texas. That's right. Home of Schlitterbahn. Love it. Uh-oh. Snowed in Frisco, Texas. I just sent some rapid tests there the other day. Somebody in your hometown got some. Chicago, Illinois. Freaking cold. Nice picture. YouTube. Watch it on YouTube. Awesome. We're going to get started here in 50 seconds. I'm going to test myself. I'm going to talk about testing. I'll test myself. And I will also, all right, she gets it on Tuesday. I get confused. What's up, New Hampshire? And then I'll give you a chance to answer questions at the end. Okay? All right, all right. Jade, in isolation. Uh-oh. Hope you didn't test positive. Not good. What's up, Looney? All right. I don't know her personally. I know of Dr. Christian Northrup, part of the woo-woo movement. Hay House, all those good doctors there. All right, Marie Wynn. Sista, what's up? I'm here in Houston too. All right. Thank you, Jenna. Appreciate that. All right, let's get started. It's been 5 minutes. Uh-oh. I had COVID before. Made it through. Good job, girl. Love it. Okay, guys. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Duck Von, world famous bariatric surgeon, author of 13 books. Hope you're doing great. I'm going to talk about COVID testing, what you need to do. Then I'm going to test myself with one of my COVID rapid tests, and then I'll take your questions. Sound good? There's a lot of confusion. Let me tell you. As always, I will edit these down, put these up on my YouTube channel so you can cut through all the hellos, right? But none of the cussing. I don't cut out the cursing. Number one thing I want to tell you, our current testing strategy. Okay. Put a 1 in the comment section if you're starting to understand that this is true. Put a 1 in the comment section if this is starting to make sense to you. Our current testing strategy is all wrong. We've been doing wrong this whole fucking time, right? What have they been doing? They've been telling you, go get a test if you start having symptoms, if you feel bad. So then there comes to be this real long line. Yes? Who's waiting on long line? Long lines? Yes. Yes. Lisa, yes. And so what happens is you end up only testing when you feel sick. Am I right? Everybody's agreeing. Jesus freak. If Jesus freak agrees, then I know I'm onto something. Our testing strategy is all wrong. So why is it all wrong? A couple things. I'm sorry, it's cold here, and I started my fireplace, and I've been, I'm allergic, I think, to this little red oak, a little itchy. So apologize about that. All right, so what happens? We've been telling people, they've been telling us to test. I just noticed my face is so puffy from all this fireplace smoke. Man, sorry about that. All right, start over. That's vodka. Just kidding. It's water. Just kidding. It's vodka. So from day one, they've been telling us to test whenever you feel sick, right? When you have symptoms. So you see all the pictures on the news of big parking lots, stadium lots, long car lines, multiple different ways for people to go in the car, people out there testing you, in their PPEs and stuff, right? Whenever they started feeling bad, or 2, when they would have been exposed or they were nervous or something like that. So what happened? There causes this huge backup. Now, why is this testing strategy not effective? I know you guys know because you watch me, you're smart, right? We know that the incubation period of this test, of this virus, can be up to 14, 15 days. The average incubation period for most viruses is about 2 to 3 days. Influenza, the seasonal flu, you are most contagious right before you have symptoms and when you have symptoms. That's not the case with COVID, with coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2. That's not the case, all right? There's up to a 14, 15-day incubation period. The average is 5 to 7 days. 5 to 7 days, but it can be 14, 15 days. And that 5 to 7 day incubation period, you're really contagious. You're contagious 2 to 3 days before having symptoms. Before having symptoms. But I feel fine. I don't understand why I can't go to the party. That's what asymptomatic means. So it's always an uphill battle. One of the things, can't believe I'm about to say this, but one of the things I do agree with President Trump. He's right. This is a fucking invisible enemy. He said it right. We can't see it. Your Tinder date, Uncle Billy, she looks clean. She doesn't have symptoms. She feels all right. That's what asymptomatic means. You have no symptoms. Even with me, these are allergies from my fireplace, right? So you can look at Dr. V and says, he has a runny nose. His eyes are a little puffy. Maybe he has coronavirus. That's symptoms. See that? I'm symptoms. Well, I'm going to test myself on this video with a rapid test so you can see. But this I know is because my fireplace is going. Okay? Happens every time I burn a fire. So, but 2 to 3 days, you're highly contagious without symptoms. 2 or 3 day window where you do not have symptoms, no symptoms. You look normal, you look fine. She looks clean. Uncle Billy says she looks clean. And bam, chlamydia. I mean, bam, coronavirus. That's what I meant to say. All right. So 2 to 3 days. And then when you are really sick, you're also contagious. And then as you start to get better, your contagion goes down. Does that make sense? So Trump's right. It is an invisible enemy. And as much as I don't like it, it is the coronavirus. It is the China virus. It's so fucking ugly the way he says it. Technically, he should call it the Wuhan virus, I guess. I don't know. We call it the UK variant. We call it the South African variant. Now there might be a Japanese variant. Who knows about this new Japanese variant? We can say Japanese variant, but we can't say China virus. I don't like it, but that's just the way it is, okay? Technically, the UK variant is B117. Who the fuck can remember B117? Right? So our current testing strategy is all wrong. Now, who remembers when they told you at the beginning, they said, if you feel symptoms, if you feel bad, go get tested. So long lines, yes? And then they said, you need 2 negative tests before you can go back to work. Who remembers that? You need 2 negative tests. And then suddenly, a month later, they're like, nah, just quarantine. Just isolate for 14 days. That has since come down to 7 days because people could not, and this current environment, economic environment, they can't stay away from work for 14 days. They'll lose their jobs. They don't make any money. So they cut that down to 7 days. But who remembers in the early days, they told you had to have 2 negative tests before you could go back to work? What happened there? What happened there was this. Don't have enough tests. And they realized that you could also test positive for a long time. Doesn't mean you're shedding virus. So they just said, hey, on average, we know you're contagious and the contagion goes down. 14 days, you should be out of that window of most infectious. But you can still be infectious. You can still be shedding virus. This is statistics, man. I'm just telling you. Don't get angry at Dr. V. I'm just telling you the facts, okay? So now they backed it down to 7 days. Is that the right thing to do? You're still pretty contagious at that point. Some people are still having pretty serious symptoms. Dr. Vong would tell you, you need to not have symptoms. You need to not be coughing, since we know it's mostly respiratory virus. Runny nose, coughing, loss of smell. You're still contagious by Dr. V standards. You might be tired. You might have a little brain fog. It's been 21 days. You're probably good to go. You probably have dead virus inside of you. Dr. Vong, that sounds scary. How do we figure out if we are shedding positive virus, live virus? No good way. You actually have to culture it, which requires one of those special biolabs in Wuhan. Fucking ironic, isn't it? You have to have a lab that can culture live virus to know for sure, definitively. Which, not just Wuhan, but that was just an example, right? Okay, so let's talk about tests. All right, I drew this chart for you guys. I need a break on my whiteboard. All right, so let me scoot over. So let's talk about tests. All right, the one that you guys are doing the most of is the nasal / oral PCR. Yes? That is when they tell you go get tested and you see people in line in the cars, all those pictures, videos of the cars, most of that is this nasal PCR test. That's the one they shove you way up your nose. And that shit needs to go up in here and they need to jiggle that shit around. They need to break through your fucking boogers and snot. They need to get your nose running. Did you know that? Now comment if you had a nasal test and the little lady or the little assistant just put it up there and put it up there and she was done. Not a good test. We'll talk about why that's important. They need to shove it, break through the snot barrier, get your nose running, and then collect that sample. That's the best way to do it. Okay. Then they have to send it to a lab. And so now you have, is the lab on site? Is the lab down the street? Is the lab in the same city? Or do they have to send it to another city to do the lab? So it could take a day to send it, a day to process it, a day to get back your results. Now, with more people getting tests, what's happening? What's your turnaround time? If you've had one of these nasal drive-up tests recently, how long did it take you to get your results back? Remember back in June when it was taking 10 days? Well, freaking, I'm going to tell you, any test that's more than 2 days is useless. And you really need to have the test results back the same day. Wouldn't you agree? How long did it take you? Looney took them 7 days. Anita, 2 to 4 days. All right. How long did it take you? 15 minutes is not one of these PCR tests. Good. 3 to 5 days. Good. 7 days turnaround for LA, for California. See, that's right. Backlog. That's the problem. Okay. Same day is good. But here's what you're seeing. 3 days, 4 days, 4 days for Ryan. See, here it comes. 10 days for LaTanya, 9 days in Virginia, 10 days, 10 days. All right. So not good. Let's talk about that. All right. The next test we're going to talk about is the antigen test. Okay. Antigen test. These can be nasal or the saliva. You see these nasal or saliva, the spit test. They call them spit tests. Okay. Those are the spit test or the nasal. You can do nasal too. Antigen. Okay. And then there is the antibody test. So there's the antibody test. That's the finger prick test. Those are my kits. That's what I have. I also have a nasal antigen box. So I have an antigen rapid test too. I'm still freaking testing it out. I'm messing with it. Okay. So next question. What do these test for? All right. Here comes the quiz. So you have to think. Okay. You have to think here. What is the nasal PCR test looking for? What is it looking for? All right. So it's looking for genomic sequence. It's looking for the genome. So that means what? DNA/RNA. That's what these PCR tests are designed to do. DNA, RNA. All right. Now let's see who gets this right. When it comes to coronavirus, what we're talking about here, if you get one of these nasal drive-up PCR tests, which one is it checking for, DNA or RNA? Who knows the answer? All right. You better say fucking RNA. Okay. That's what it's checking for. RNA, not COVID. Wrong. Yes, COVID, but DNA or RNA? There you go. Yes, RNA. See, you guys are much smarter than the average Trump voter. Awesome. Awesome. He said he's not political, and look at him bashing us. Well, you got to see how the man behaves, man. How does the candidate behave? So when it comes to coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, it's an RNA virus. So it's actually trying to pick up RNA. Does that make sense? And that's why you have to send it to a lab. And they have to run special assays and stuff on it. Okay? Now, an antigen test Proteins. I hear some squeaking like some mice. Seriously. I think they're coming in from the rain. All right. So what are protein antigens looking for? These are looking for proteins. Okay. All right. So we are always talking about that spike protein. Now, to be honest, I don't know exactly which SARS-CoV-2. I have a storm coming through here through Houston, so I'm sorry if it's like busting up. All right. Okay. So antibody test. That's easy. It's checking for antibodies. I did the last video. I talked about the vaccines and how you take a vaccine in this lipid bilayer and it induces an immune response that creates proliferation of your B cells, which makes memory B cells, plasma cells, which makes these antibodies. Okay, so an antibody test checks if you have antibodies, right? That's what we're looking for here, antibodies. Now, pluses and minuses. Is this helpful? Pluses and minuses. Pluses for the nasal PCR. It's very sensitive. No, Uncle Billy, not like your condoms. Right? Sensitive means it picks it up at low levels. So this PCR test detection. But what's a negative? Problem is you have a lot of false negatives and time. You get false negatives. I want to talk about that real quick. What are false negatives? Who knows? It's when you take a test, the test comes back negative, but you actually have coronavirus. The test just didn't pick it up. That's called a false negative. So even though this test is most likely to pick it up early, it also has false negatives. I swear to God, I hear like a little guinea pig or something squeaking right behind me. I know we have little mice. Oh, Houston. Okay. So false negatives. Why can you have false negative? The most likely reason is when they take that swab and they shove it up your nose, they miss it. Or when they take it into the back of your throat, let me see, way back here, they get the wrong tonsil or they don't hit the right spot. So you can miss it, even though the virus is inside of you. They miss it. That's number one. Number two, there could be a lab error in terms of reagents, timing, testing, but usually it's going to be technique, okay? Or they just picked it up too early, or you went and tested too early. Now, the next negative is it takes time. You have to send it to a lab, and the more cases you have, which is what we're seeing right now, the longer it takes to have a turnaround time. In which case, if it's taking you 4 or 5 days to get a turnaround time, what's the point of the test? Okay, which goes back to what I said earlier in an early video, how to protect yourself from coronavirus. You have to assume everybody has coronavirus. You have to assume that if you have runny nose, cough, especially if you lose sense of smell, it's coronavirus. And I don't care what test, even if you have a negative test, it's coronavirus right now because it's horses. They're not zebras, they're horses. They're out there. Okay. Nasal, next test, nasal or saliva antigen. Okay. Oh, another negative to this nasal PCR. There's no rapid test, but now you know why. I mean, it requires high level of sophistication to be able to pick up the DNA or RNA of a tiny virus. Does that make sense? So they don't have assays available to pick up the actual DNA. So there's, to my knowledge, there's no rapid PCR test. Okay. All right. Antigens. Okay. What are some positives? That's important because you want 10 to 15-minute results. Some of you guys who are going through your drive-thrus, now they're starting to offer you some nasal antigen rapid tests, 10, 15-minute results, because they know. Problem is not very accurate. That's a negative. It's not very accurate. But even being 70% accurate, which is what the PCR is, it's better than nothing. And those saliva spit tests are horrible. That's what Costco is selling you, right? They're about 60% accurate. The spit tests. That's the one the NBA used. They formed that because they're thinking, well, at least if you're 60% accurate, it's better than a coin toss. Knowing is better than not knowing. And if you test them enough, then you're going to catch it. So that's the strategy. It's like if you test them frequently, all right, you'll get this. All right. If you test enough, like these NBA basketball players, they were getting tested every day with a test that's only 50 to 60% accurate. But if you test them every single day, it's just a matter of time when those probabilities catch a positive test. Does that make sense? All right. So one of the things I said early on is that we have totally fucked up the testing. We were doing this one-time testing, etc. It's just not, only come get a test if you feel bad. No, you should be doing what the NBA is doing, which is testing regularly. That's what I do. I test myself every 7 to 10 days, 10 to 14 days. I tested myself a week ago. I'm going to test myself again today on this video. It's available in rapid test. Okay. Okay. All right. So the antibodies. See, let me just say it's less sensitive. So it's less sensitive for early detection. The PCR is the best for early detection. The middle is our antigen rapid test. And this antibody test, rapid. It's available on a rapid test. That's what I have. That's what's here. So it's easy to do. That's super important. Now, it's not quite as easy as spitting into a cup. But even that one, you got to send in. The spit test one, you got to send into a lab. Antibody test, you can do it at home. That's what I do. Finger prick, put it on a cassette. I'll test myself here in a few minutes. All right. Negative is it's least sensitive. It will pick up active infection, but it's least sensitive. But it will pick up active infection. All right. Some people are like, you can't use it to pick up active infection. Yes, you can. One time is not the best strategy. But But if you're like the NBA basketball players and you test yourself regularly, like what I do, you can use it for active infection. Now, here's another positive for it. It's very accurate. It is the most accurate. Of all of these 3 tests, it's the most accurate for COVID. Why? Because that means your body has been exposed to COVID, to coronavirus, to SARS-CoV-2. Your body has been exposed to SARS-CoV-2 and has produced these antibodies, right, from the spike protein there. And this test will pick it up. So it is very accurate. It is the most accurate. Now, what are we doing wrong? People go, oh, I feel bad. I'm going to go get in. Turnaround time got up to 10 days. It was bad, right? Then they started trying to say, hey, we need a point of treatment test. So when you go see your doctor, it's just kind of like the influenza or the strep test. They do a strep test on you. It comes back positive and negative, right? And so they started offering those. But if you use the antibodies, they're very accurate because you get it. You might just not, it's not as sensitive. But if it's going to take 4 or 5 days to get a result back from this PCR, by that point, you should have formed antibodies. Does that make sense? Forming antibodies takes about 5 to 7 days. So if it's going to take 5 days to get the results back, you might as well just stay at home, prick your finger. And I always say, you know, if you think you might have it, you got to test yourself twice, at least, minimum. One for the baseline, one 5 to 7 days later to see if, in case you missed this incubation period. Now, if I had to guess, what I think would work really, really well, and this is what I'm looking at doing, is combining an antigen test with an antibody test. So I got this antigen, this is a rapid antigen test. You do it at home. You put it on a cassette. You don't send it to a lab, right? Awesome, right? You have this antigen test. So it's going to pick up, it's more sensitive for picking up active infection. Let's say you feel bad. Dr. Vong, I've been feeling bad for 3 or 4 days. All right. First thing I would do is do a rapid antigen test at home. And then if that's negative, if it's positive, you're done. If it's positive, you got it. If it's negative, I would repeat it with an antibody test in another 4 to 5 days. Whole time, it doesn't matter. You need to be isolating anyway. Dr. Vong, what's, why should we take the test if they don't pick up? No, that's not the right attitude. You need to know, but the whole time you should still be isolating, not quarantining. Quarantining means you can go to the grocery store, do your essentials, etc. Isolating means what? Isolating means you stay in a bedroom and they bring you your food because you got to stay away from everybody because you think you're positive. So right now we have cases that are so high that if you start to feel bad, you need to isolate. But Dr. Vong, you said you had a stuffy nose, a little mild cough. How do you know? Well, I'm a doctor. I know it's from my fireplace because I was fine yesterday. Well, I could still have it. So that's why I test myself every 10 days, right? So this will be 7 days. You got to do this to get you through the whole time. Now, listen, remember what I said. Well, Dr. Vong, how do I know when I'm safe to go out of the house? CDC says 7 days. You quarantine for 7 days, isolate for 7 days, you're good. They cut that back from 14 days, hoping more people would quarantine. I keep saying quarantine, but I mean isolate. Because they're hoping that at least if you isolate for 7 days, that's better than nothing. That's their logic. I don't agree with it, but it's okay. There's no way to know if you're shedding virus. Well, Dr. Vong, how did they let President Trump out of the hospital so soon? One, he probably demanded it. But two, they probably had access to live culturing. So they probably cultured him. If I had to guess, they might not have. They might have let him say, they might have said, okay, well, you're roughly 10 days since your first onset or exposure, which is not quite right, but they let them out. And you can't go back and change the past. Okay. Oh, I want to talk about this real quick. Hang with me, and then I'm going to test myself. Okay. I'll let you know how this goes. Okay. I'll answer your questions here in the last few minutes while my test is coming through. So get your questions ready. So I want to talk about false positives and false negatives. Some people sit there and go, Dr. Vong, I got told that I was positive, but I don't have any symptoms. Well, you could be asymptomatic. The range of when you get infected with this SARS-CoV-2, the range is like very little symptoms to like terribly sick in the ICU and dying. I mean, that is huge. Most people know if you get the influenza, you're down for 3 or 4 days, maybe a week on a really bad one. Does that make sense? But you can't, unless you're really compromised, like the elderly, you don't usually die from influenza. You can, but it's pretty rare. By the way, motherfuckers, the case fatality rate when you catch SARS-CoV-2 is 3%. All right? It's not. So stop fucking going around spreading these lies. 99.6% of people survive this. No, they don't. Your math is off. That's not how that works. 97% recover. The 97% don't die. It's die or don't die. You're not even considering long-term effects. We know there are long-term effects. We know there's long-term fatigue, chronic fatigue, brain fog. We've got heart inflammation. We got liver inflammation. We got kidney disease. We have long-term effects that we're just starting to come out with. Okay. So, but you survived, motherfucker. You were right. The case fatality rate's 3%. That means if you catch it. Now, in Texas, if you get admitted to the hospital, your case fatality rate goes up to 10%. So 1 in 10% will die. And if you go into the ICU, it's like 20%. Your chances of dying if you're in the ICU with COVID is like 20% now. Because we're only putting the sickest of the sick in the ICU. So these motherfuckers who keep saying, oh, 99.6% like survive, like, you're an idiot. You're using statistics wrong. Okay? I meant to do this earlier. Bob Ross. My Bob Ross mug. Okay? Look at this. We don't make mistakes. We have happy accidents. This coronavirus testing was not a happy accident. This is testing. Okay? When you don't test, oh, we don't have any coronavirus cases. I told my people, can we please stop the testing? Please stop the testing. And they laughed. We've got more cases because we do more testing. In fact, we do more testing than anybody else in the world. We have more cases. No, you have more cases because there's more coronavirus out there. Can please stop the testing? You get a laugh about that, and 360,000 Americans have died. How do you feel? All right. This is Testing Cup. That's Bob Ross. Okay. For those of you who don't know Bob Ross. Now, this is my green tea. Hopefully it's still hot. Yes. Okay. I'm going to pour my rose green tea. Shoot. I just dripped water everywhere. Okay. All right. That's green tea. It's all over my lap. Okay. Now what's going to happen? The green tea is testing. My voice just cracked like Bobby Brady. All right. The green tea is testing. And when you test more, look what happens. You get a better picture of what's really going on. Does that make sense? Testing is like turning on the lights. It helps you see what's going on out there. We have to test more, not test less. Okay? We don't have any cockroaches. Don't turn on the lights. As long as you don't turn on the lights, we don't have cockroaches. What the fuck's wrong with you? You got to turn on the lights. You turn on the lights, they scatter. We have cockroaches. Let's fix the problem. Where are they? They're not in the bedroom. They're mostly in the kitchen. They're mostly in Texas, in LA, New York City. They're about to blow up Florida. Now you can spot treat. Call in the exterminator. We got cockroaches in the kitchen. Exterminator says what? Exterminator says what? Nah, man, you got cockroaches in all the house, everywhere in the house. They're all in the walls. Does that make sense? This is testing. It helps us see what's going on. We have to test more. So the fallacy was that early on, we kept telling people, no, only get tested if you feel bad. If you feel bad, get tested. That's all people did. We should have been testing people the whole time. Dr. V, you would have gone through millions and millions of tests. That's right. But it would have been the right answer. And especially when you had hotspot areas, you needed to test more frequently. Back in March, in May, June, Wyoming didn't have very many cases. You don't need to test people there. Not as much. But the South was fucking on fire in July. We didn't test. Alabama, Texas, Georgia. Now we're about to be on fire again. Love my Bob Ross. Bob Ross. He didn't know one day his mug was going to be used to explain testing. Okay, this is testing 101. All right. So false negatives means they just didn't pick it up. They missed the spot. You tested too soon. So you can't just test one time. I feel bad. I'm tired. I'm coughing. I have a runny nose. But my test came back negative, so I went out for New Year's. You fucking infected everybody at that party. Dr. Vong, how do you know it wasn't the cold? Because it's a pandemic. What is out there in the community right now, y'all? Who knows the answer? It's coronavirus. Answer. Survival of the fittest. Let me tell you about the flu real quick. Number one, coronavirus is out there. So the flu never had a chance to get started. Does that make sense? The cold never had a chance to get started. Number one. Number two, people are mostly staying home, wearing masks. Number three, it's called the fucking hemispheres, right? The southern hemisphere is in summer right now. Northern hemisphere, US, Canada, we are in UK, we are in winter. So the flu season always starts in the southern hemisphere first, and they travel to the north when it's summer in the fall season. And with this year, with all international flights mostly shut down, you didn't have that same travel. So you didn't have the influx of influenza from the southern hemisphere this year that you normally do. Plus people are staying home, plus people are wearing masks. And that's why we don't have the flu pandemic, which we talked about. Some scientists thought that if we wore masks, we might not have as bad of a flu season. Turns out they're pretty smart. It's true. So most likely, if you're coughing, sneezing, see, it's allergies, but they've gone away. I'm smart, doctor. Okay. So you just have to assume right now that it is coronavirus. What I want to talk about is false positives, because some people sit there and go, but Dr. Vong, my friend, my brother's roommate's cousin was scheduled to have a coronavirus test. He didn't go because he got a flat tire, got called into a job interview, whatever was happening. Didn't go get the test. 2 weeks later, he got a letter that said he's positive, but he never had the test. What is that? That's called a false positive. They give you a positive test, but you don't really have coronavirus. Okay? What causes that? The most likely cause of that Now listen, I love my lab techs. I love my essential workers. I'm not bashing anybody. But please, it's mostly lab error. Okay? So the techs are overworked. They run out of reagents. They run out of time. But most likely they're doing something called pooling. This got them in trouble in the spring. They're pooling specimens. So what happens is, let's say you have 10 tests. You're running low on reagents. You batch 10 tests. If they all come out negative, you run the test one time. If they all come out negative, you're good. You've used one assay for 10 tests. Now, if that batch comes out positive, now you have to go back and individually retest every single one of those. So for 10 tests, now you've used 11 reagents. But most of the time, because the positivity rate is low, hopefully less than 5%, most of the time that batch of 10 will turn out to be negative. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? Yes. So what happens in a pooling error is when labs get overrun because you fucking have 15,000 cases a day, LA. California, 50,000 cases a day, California. Texas, 20,000 cases a day. These labs are overrun. So sometimes does that make sense? So if you've heard these stories about, I didn't take a test, but I got a letter that said I was positive, that was probably a product of pooling. And you're going to see more pooling with higher cases that come through. Does that make sense? Doesn't make the test wrong. Doesn't make it bad. It just means we have to test more frequently. Remember Bob Ross, the cock. Testing is turning on the lights. Testing is keeping yourself safe. If I don't get a test, I don't have HIV. Uncle Billy. No. If I don't have a pregnancy test, then I'm not pregnant. No. You need to take a test. Okay. So I'm going to test myself real quick. Let me show you what I have real quick. I think the future, moving forward, I am probably going to put together a two test kit. One test will be this antigen test, and one rapid test, and one test will be this rapid antibody test to do exactly what I mentioned earlier. I'm thinking, all right, let's see who's paying attention now. If you're first responder, healthcare worker, if you've had your vaccine shot, there's 6 million Americans. That's right. You have to form antibodies. The whole purpose of getting a vaccine is to get your body to form these memory B cells and antibodies. How do you know if you have antibodies? Well, you can go to a lab, get a big vial of blood drawn, and have them check your antibody level. Or, roughly speaking, you guessed it, you can have an antibody test. So I'm thinking about putting together a special price for 2 test kits. And what you get is, so you can test yourself before you get your vaccine, or maybe after your first dose, and again after your second dose. Kind of what I'm thinking. But let me go through. So this is a FDA EUA, Emergency Use Act. It's the only EUA rapid antigen test. And I'm still trying it out. I haven't used it on myself yet, mostly because I don't want to stick this shit up my nose. Because look at that. That's how far back you got to put your nose. I mean, it is, whoa, you're shoving it way. It needs, okay, here we go. It's got to go way back here, like that. It's got to go way. So you're really literally poking way up there. Okay, does that make sense? And I don't know if people are going to do that, but I think people get the idea. And then you put it into this capsule, you spin it, okay? And then you put it on a cassette, you put some buffer on it, and you read it. So here's that buffer, here's the test, here's the swab, here's the Dulio, and here's a swab. What is this thing? Extraction vials. It's test device. So this is the cassette. And the solution you put in there. I guess I should look at this some point, huh? And that'll pick up the antigen test. So it'll pick up active infection earlier than the antibody test, but not as early as the PCR, okay? But you need to help out with the accuracy by using the rapid test. So I'm thinking of combining those two together, combining these two tests together, because then you can confirm it 5 days later with this antibody test. And if you have antibodies, then you fucking have COVID, okay? This is 100% accurate when it comes to picking up antibodies. So if you've been exposed to COVID, to coronavirus, and SARS-CoV-2 specifically, this is specific to SARS-CoV-2. I get that question also. And you formed antibodies. This test will 100% pick it up. 100%. They've tested it. I had a lab test it. But it's only 95% accurate overall because people test too soon. You can't test too soon with this. So I think combining the two would work. I'm going to test myself real quick. And I'll take some questions while we're getting the results, okay? If you are interested in ordering these COVID tests for me, these rapid test kits, on the bottom there, go to facebook.com/Dr. Vong. I'll take your questions here in a second. And message me. They sell 5 for $500, but I will wholesale them to you for $20 for $50 each. That's $1,000. 20 for $50 each. Minimum order of 20. $50 each, minimum order of 20. That's $1,000. So message me 20 for 1,000, so I know it's $1,000 investment. Don't waste my time, please. Free shipping, free overnight shipping if you order 40 or more. And you're going to need that many. All right? You're going to need it that many. Okay, so if you order from me, I ship them to you in a FedEx box, security taped, because $4,000. And each kit has everything you need. So let's open it up. I'm going to test myself. I'll take your questions. Okay. I had this infographic made. Shows you exactly how to do it. At the bottom there, it shows you how to read it. We want this middle result right here, negative. Okay. Shows you where to put everything, the blood, the specimen, etc. In the kit, you'll have a pair of gloves if you want to use it, if you're scared of blood. Little Band-Aid so you can show your wife you're a tough guy. Here's the rapid test kit. Little alcohol swab because you don't want to contaminate it. And the finger prick, like if you have diabetes or you ever check your blood sugar, this little finger prick. And the solution. Now listen, I want to show you something real quick. There's not much solution in here. So some people, when they get it, they don't realize, they're like, oh, there's no solution in there. No, you have to hold it vertically and kind of thump it. And you can see that the solution comes down. Does that make sense? Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is open my rapid test. And this is on the FDA emergency use authorized list. So this is FDA. There's nothing FDA approved, but it's on the EUA list. Okay. Now listen, here's the test. And you can see on there, it says COVID. Let me see. COVID-19. Y'all see it say COVID-19? There you go. COVID-19. So it's very specific. And see, it has that control line. You see the blue line there? There's a C, a G, and an M. A G shows old infection. M shows current infection. Okay. Let me lower this for you. Okay. And also in this packet, there's the pipette. So you got to break out the pipette. So some people are like, I don't have a pipette. It's in here. It's in here, okay? All right. Now, the first thing you're going to do is get all that solution down. Pop this open. Put your turkey baster in there. It's like a turkey baster. Squeeze it down. Suck up pretty much all of that solution. Try not to make too many bubbles. But you can see right there, the solution is now in the pipette. Just put that down, okay? You can open up your Band-Aid. If you want to use a Band-Aid, that's fine. Use your non-dominant hand. I'm left-handed, so I'll use this finger. I used my middle finger last time. Wipe that down. Here is the lance. You're going to take the cap off, and you're going to literally just push down on the finger. It's automatically preloaded. There's nothing for you to do. It's super easy. Just 1, 2, 3. Did not hurt at all. Okay, did not hurt at all. Now I'm going to milk out that blood. If you're not a good bleeder, you might want to hold your thumb finger down. If you have big calluses, don't do it in the middle. Now, here's the cassette. You guys see that? This is a solution, buffer solution, okay? So I'm going to show you how to do this. Put this in the top square. Hopefully oh, look at that. Dr. V got it in there. That's good. Now, I'm just going to take my Band-Aid. My little alcohol swab. Hold it right there. And look, that pinprick was so small, it's already stopped bleeding. That's it. But I want to show Erica that I'm a tough guy. I got a little boo-boo honey. So I'll put my Band-Aid on there. Okay? Not that you need it. Now, I have my buffer solution. This is important. Okay? The buffer solution is up here in my pipette. I'll pick that up. And I'm going to drop it in the bottom round well. Pretty much most of it. A couple of big drops like that. Boom, boom, boom. Now, if I missed it and there's a lot of blood on the side of the well, you can put it up there too. And try to tap it down. See that? Tap. I put it in here too. Get that down there. But I think I had plenty of blood. Now, you see that purple line? See that purple? It's already moving up. This is called lateral flow assay. It moves up. And watch, it's gonna be like Crystal Gale. It's gonna turn that blue line to pink. I'm gonna make my brown eyes blue. In this case, it's a blue line to pink. This is pretty cool, right? See it moving up? See that mauve color, purple? Okay. Now, once that line turns blue, that means I have a valid test. Okay. Boom. All right. So now my blue line is now pink. Now I just wait for 10 minutes. So 7:58, I'll wait for 10 minutes. And then I'll read the results. Now, I had these cards made up for you. If you can, there's no other place online that makes these kits, by the way. I put these together, literally, Erica and her mom. And they come with this card that tells you want just the control line. The G line, okay, you see the G line here at the top? If you have a G line, it shows past infection. Like if you had a vaccine or you've had it in the past, maybe you had it this summer. IgM indicates current infection. And this is really cool because when you're actively infected, so if you have, sorry, this is backwards. If you have an IgM line that's bright, that means you're actively infected. It'll start fading as you start losing your antibodies. And then it'll start forming your IgG line. That means you've had it in the past. You can have both. If you have both, that means you could be actively infected and start forming your memory antibodies. Okay, cool, right? But now you know information is the key. It's the Bob Ross mug. Oh, it went black on me. You got to have information. Putting our heads in the sand is not fixing this. And I'm telling you, at $50 each, it's a steal. So my older daughter's mother wanted me to go to an urgent care center because I had my daughter last week to get her tested before I would send her home. I said, but I have these tests at my house. She goes, I don't care. I want you to go to urgent care. I said, fine. So I went to an urgent care. They did a Sophia test, which is it's a nasal antigen test. It's a shit test, by the way. The Sophia is terrible. It was $250, guys, for this nasal rapid antigen test. If you go to an urgent care unit, it's about $250. If you go get a rapid antibody nasal rapid antigen test is $250 most places. Antibody test can be $150 to $200. So for those of you, I'm sorry you broke, but I can't get this any cheaper than $50 to you. $50 each, right? That's it. You can check it out. All right. I'm going to give myself look at the results here, and I make this card for you that's easy to understand. Plus, if you order from me, I have people who send me, hey doc, what do you think of this result? Is this a mess up? What's the deal? Some people will say, hey, I didn't get enough buffer. Can you send me more buffer? Yep, exactly. Jessica Sunday, $50 each is cheap. Absolutely. All right, so let's do our questions. Let's start our Q&A here for the next 10 minutes while we wait for my result. Is Dr. V going to be positive or negative? So I think in the future, what we need to do is have the rapid antigen test, because it's going to be done the same way. You're going to take that shit up your nose, put it in a solution, and then you're going to rub it into this cassette, and then put some buffer solution, and it will tell you if you have antigens, positive or negative. So it's a rapid test, so no special equipment. The Sophia, which is also a nasal antigen test, you need to have a special equipment, and that's a fluorescent immunoassay is what they use there. Okay, let's do some tests, some questions. I mean, so this virus is up in here, man. Before it gets into your chest, it's up in here. So dentists, they are high risk for being exposed, right? So James Dean, the real James Dean. If you're positive, how long does the antibodies last for? Good question. The antibodies at the initial response can last up to 2 or 3 months. So that's why this whole argument about giving everybody the vaccine and stretching out the second dose, not so smart. That's why they're talking about it, because you do have this initial boost. But listen, you're going to get in trouble. One, because that's not how the trials were conducted. They were conducted given a certain methodology that equaled a certain result, this 95% protective efficacy result. You can't change the fucking method and still expect the same result. Plus, you're going to have people who, the more you stretch out the time between the second dose, people are going to forget it. They're going to get busy. And the last thing you want is a bunch of people 3 months out thinking they're protected from coronavirus, and they're not. Does that make sense? So I don't think it's a smart strategy. Dr. Fauci doesn't think it's a smart strategy, but we're panicking. The answer is that they're panicking. Okay. And you can't panic. You got to stay with the test, the science. In Texas, we say, dance with the one who brung you. You only dance with the one who brung you, man. So this methodology took us to this 95% effective result. Why the fuck are we looking at Uncle Billy across the hallway? It's because we're nervous? Come on. Okay. Now, I agree. The person who brung you might not be the best dancer there. But we know if we stick out with them, they'll give us 95% result satisfaction. That's what we want. Okay. Here's a good question, Jill Wolf. If I was positive and now husband is positive 3 weeks later, what are my chances to get it again from him if it is a different strain? So you don't mean strain, Jill. I've done videos on this. You're talking about a variant. We know that even with the same SARS-CoV-2, you can catch it again. So, but remember, it's not 100%. A lot of people think that it's like 100%, and it's not. All right, so let's talk about that real quick. Exposure is defined as 15 minutes of time in close contact with somebody without a mask on. Neither one of you, neither party was wearing a mask, talking for 15 minutes. Cumulative. So if somebody's in the office, like the clock doesn't start over because you walk away. So throughout the day, if you're at work and you're within 6 feet of somebody, you're hanging out at somebody's desk, and you talk for 5 minutes, go, come back, talk for 5 minutes, go, come back, talk for 5 minutes, and then they test positive, that's 15 minutes of exposure. Does that make sense? Cumulative. So what, but my husband got it, but I didn't get it. Even then, it's not 100% contagious. It's actually about, the numbers have been coming down. The more that we're doing precautions, it's coming down. When this first started, it was about 25%, which is really high. Doesn't sound high, but it is. It's really high. So 25%. Okay. But now that number's come down to about 10%. But this new strain from the UK variant and South African variant is predicted to be about 15%, which is a big increase. All right. It's a big increase. Can asymptomatic test positive for more than 30 days? You know, that goes back to that testing question. I guess it's possible depending on which test did you take. That's the whole point of me doing this talk. We got to stop saying I got a coronavirus test. We need to start saying I got a nasal PCR test. I got a nasal antigen test. I got a finger prick antibody test. Because that changes. That changes how someone like me thinks about what to tell you next. Does that make sense? Yep. There's a possible new variant in Japan. I've heard ibuprofen makes you more no, that's old news. Old, false, fucking stupid shit that was spread back in March. Do you need a fever to have COVID and loss of taste? Fever is very non-specific to COVID. I would disregard fever. Fever is way overblown. It is not a reliable indicator at all. You can have fever for lots of reasons. But loss of taste is much more specific. Loss of taste and smell. If you have loss of taste and smell, cough, body aches, feel like shit, you've got fucking COVID. I don't care what a test tells you. Okay? So now you just heard me and you got bugged. Why did you get bugged? Who knows the answer to that? Because why the fuck are they taking your temperatures? Why the fuck are teachers like zapping your kids' foreheads when they walk into the classroom? It's fool's gold, man. It's going to give you this false sense of security. It's not very specific. I guess you could argue it's better than nothing. But just because some kid feels fine that has a fever or low-grade fever doesn't tell you much. Okay? No, vaccine will totally help. I don't know. What is wrong with people? God. You know, can't even get... What is problem? Daniel, go back and watch the video. It seems we have to test for COVID from now on, right? We need to. That's how we're going to get through this pandemic, Alita. That's how we're going to we got to get through this fucking pandemic. You guys understand how fucking hard it's going to be to go down from 300,000 cases a day? A day! New cases a day! There were 300,000 cases yesterday and 300,000 cases the day before that. In other words, in 3 days, you'll have 1 million cases. It's going to be so hard to get down from that. Oh, the vaccine's right around the corner. Oh, my fucking God. We are going to fly through 300,000. All right? Stop it with fucking ivermectin. Ivermectin is going to go the way of hydroxychloroquine. Same fucking shit. Go with the science. We have very specific treatments that are showing promise. Some doctor who says that he's been treating patients with ivermectin, which is a anti-parasitic that's used for vets, doesn't make it science. It's not how it works. Some fucking crazy voodoo doctor who thinks demon semen comes and impregnates you in the middle of the night swore that she's been treating people with hydroxychloroquine. Then it turns out she believes in demon semen. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with these doctors who say that ivermectin works. I'm just saying that's not how science works. We thought there was promise with hydroxychloroquine at first, and now we know there's not. It's been debunked. I'll give you a few others. Vitamin D seems to work if you have low vitamin D levels. Zinc is plus or minus, but listen, back into last spring, people were like eating zinc like it was candy. Plus or minus, might help, might not help. Vitamin C, plus or minus, but we were hanging in vitamin C drips. This is what takes time. This is what's called science, man. Okay? So, all right, it's been 10 minutes. Drum roll. Dr. Vong, positive or negative? I've been coughing, runny nose. I say it's allergies to my fireplace. We want to see, what do we want to see? My little card that I had made. Negative is just one single control line. And Dr. V is, boom, still negative. Yay. Let me look at that, double check. Yes. I'm still negative, no antibodies. Okay. Now, who's been paying attention? If you've had the vaccine and you take one of these COVID rapid tests, what will it look like? What will you see? Who knows the answer? That's right. You'll see a second line. You'll see an IgG or an IgM line, depending on when you test. You'll see additional lines because it'll show that the vaccine has created an immune response and you're forming antibodies. How cool is that? All right. Hey, listen, if you're a nurse or a first responder, if you've had the vaccine, tonight, I'm going to sell you a test kit of 2. Test kit of 2. I've never done this before. I've never done this before. $75 each. That's $150 for 2 tests. So you can take one now and one in a few months to see if you have antibodies. Sound good? If you've had the vaccine, message me, Dr. Vong. I've had the vaccine. I want the vaccine special. All right? And I'll give you 2 tests, 2 of these rapid tests for $150 both, plus shipping. Normally they'd be $250. Normally they'd be $250, but $150 for 2. Sound good? Otherwise, it's $20, which I know is a lot for people. $20 for $50 each, or $1,000, which is still a smoking deal. I just paid $250 for Sophia test, which is useless. Sophia test is terrible. And that's why we are X's. Okay? Thank you guys very much. Be good. As always, I will edit this video down, put it up on my YouTube channel. Be safe. Message me, facebook.com/Dr. Vong if you're interested in the COVID rapid test. Thank you guys. Bye.